Welcome, everyone, to the American Nomad podcast. I am Rav Holly, the American Nomad. Thank you for joining me for this this new time Monday. We're 30 minutes earlier than we have been in the past. Wanted to try to make this a little bit earlier for you guys on the West Coast. I know it's 10 o'clock. I mean, West Coast, the East Coast. I know it's 10 o'clock out there for you guys with the 3-hour time difference. So that's why I'm trying to do this a little bit earlier for you guys so it's not so late for you when you're out there. Looks like we got 2 people in the room already. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. Welcome again to the American Nomad podcast for, Monday, August 24th, 2020. We got 3 people in the room. Hey, JBK, good to see you, buddy. How's the sound? It sounds a little weird to me. I think I got my sound a little bit off here. There we go. It sounds better. Hey, Amy Preston, good to see you. For those that remember the mask giveaway, Matilda, she got sounds decent there. Great. Thank you, JBK, for letting me know. I got this new mixer and I bought it because it's supposed to be a mixer for dummies. And I guess I rate even worse than a dummy because I've had I've had nothing but I've had some problems getting it to work properly for what I wanted to use it for. It works fine, but when I go to stream on gaming, I have to do a completely different setup for it, and then I have to set it up completely back to this when I get ready to do my live stream. Yeah, good times. Trying to blow the chat up here a little bit so I can see it a little better. Okay, what am I doing wrong? It this way. There we go. And there we go. We can see it good. Okay, we got 4 people in the room. 3 thumbs up already. Thank you, guys. 2 minutes in, 3 thumbs up. Can't beat that. How are you guys doing this Monday? It's been a little hectic. I had a really good weekend. I actually, it's been really, really freaking hot here in LA. For those of you that don't know, I think it was up to 107 degrees the other day, which is really, really out of the ordinary for us. It's usually if it gets 85 degrees here in LA, everybody's complaining. So you can imagine 107. And being when you live in a vehicle, those are the things that's one of the things that affects you the most is the weather. If it's really cold, it's hard to keep your vehicle warm. If it's really warm, it's hard to keep your vehicle cool, which I'm sure most of you know that by driving vehicles. If you go to the mall, you leave your car in the mall, it's nice and toasty warm. When you go in the mall, you maybe only be in there 5 minutes, but by the time you get back out, you'll be able to seal your breath in there. It'll be freezing. So you can imagine living in those conditions because it's basically the same thing, depending on how well insulated your rig is. So I ended up going this weekend and staying with a really good friend of mine. Her and her husband, they have a house just like 3 miles from here. I actually did their wedding photography. It's crazy because my friend Noah that was on the podcast, my first guest, my good friend Noah, I did his wife and his wedding photography. And then my friend Kim and Brent, I did their wedding photography. And Brent and Kim live 3 miles from here, and Noah and his wife live about 1.5 miles from my new studio. So I have really good friends right here, which makes it nice because where I was close to downtown LA, I had no friends hardly over there in that part of town. It was I'm glad to be out of there. And that's all I'll say about that. But I have good friends just right here. So Kim and Brent have a really beautiful new house that I'd never seen until her birthday a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And it was the first time I seen it. And they had invited me to spend the night that night after her party. And I looked at the bedroom, their guest bedroom. I was like, oh man, this looks like a dream with the central heat and air. They got the central air conditioning kicking. It's like 70 degrees in there. And I had to clean Bertha up the next day to get Bertha ready, my camper van ready to show to the new owner. So I opted to not spend the night and leave around 12:30 so I could get up early in the next morning and get Bertha to a car wash and clean and straighten Bertha up and get her ready for the new owner to look at. So that's what I did. So I didn't spend the night, but made a mental note that, hey, when I'm not doing this, I actually may take them up on their offer to spend the night. So it's been really warm here. It makes it difficult to sleep at night when it's still 85 degrees at night, I guess. So I hit them up and ended up spending the entire. I went to spend Friday night and ended up spending the entire Friday, Saturday night, I guess. Yeah, and then I was back here in the office yesterday, Sunday. I had a bunch of furniture to move out for the landlord that I volunteered to do. He knocked a little bit off my rent, but it was such a pain in the butt that I don't know if I'd have done it again. All the furniture that was in my office, he left it in my office because he thought I was going to use it, and I'm like, no, dude. The reason I'm renting an office is because I have a whole office full of, I have a whole office full of furniture. Did have that's in my truck that I need to put in an office to get it out of my truck. So that's why I'm renting your office. So I don't need all that furniture. And so he left it to me to move it out of here. So I moved it out into a hallway into another vacant office. And then he let me know that somebody else was moving into the new office and asked me if I would either get rid of it or move it out. So it was actually really not bad furniture. It was real wood furniture. It wasn't particle wood. It was a real wood executive desk. So you can imagine it was heavy, and a matching shelf and a matching credenza, 3 pieces that I figured somebody would want. So I put it on Facebook Market and Craigslist for $100 for the 3 pieces. The shelf was a nice big wood, like mahogany shelf, and the desk matched and the credenza matched, and nobody wanted it. So finally I put it on Facebook Market for free and nobody wanted it. So I ended up having to pay a guy to come yesterday and help me move it downstairs by the dumpster. So anyway, good times. That's what I get for volunteering for stuff, or thinking, hey, maybe I'll sell it for $100 and then get a little bit off my rent. It'll totally make it worth my time. No, didn't work that way. Anyway, guys, what are you guys up to? How's everybody doing? How was everybody's weekend? JBK, how are you? Amy Preston, how are you? So anyway, Amy had, or somebody mentioned the picture that I used to have back here, which is an old photo that I did. So I moved it out, but you can see that I have this blank. That's why I had that photo here, because my wall thing cuts off right there. So that photo covered that up. But anyway, I moved it out of there, so it's gone. JBK says, doing okay. Cooling down here in Portland, got up to 109 a week or so ago. Yeah, that's crazy for Portland too, right? Because you guys are usually around the 80, 85 degree mark. If I'm not mistaken. I've been everywhere in the country, but I've said several times, I think on the podcast, I've never been to Portland, and I've never been to Seattle. I always wanted to go. Those are the 2 only major cities in the United States pretty much I haven't been to. But I really don't have any desire to go to either place now. I want to go to Seattle, or I want to go to Oregon and Washington just to get them marked off my bucket list. Because there's only 4 states I haven't been to, which it's so funny because I've been in California going on 20 years, and Oregon and Washington are literally just directly north of me. I've never been to Oregon. I've never been to Washington. I've never been to Alaska, and I've never been to Hawaii. Every other state in the United States I've been to, usually multiple times. Amy Preston says, still hot in Kansas. Man, yeah, I bet. Kansas is like Texas. Still nice and warm over there. It's been hot here. It's like I said, in the summertime, we usually get up. We might have one day where it's like 98, 99, maybe 100 degrees, but we won't have usually more than 4 days that's above 90 degrees, maybe 4 or 5 days where we get like a week above 90 degrees. It was 100 last week. It's going on 3 weeks now, and it's going to be, let me look here. I think it's going to be 90 degrees all this week, 90 or more all this week. Yeah, 94, 96, 96, 94, 93, and then it's going to drop down to 88, and then 85, 85, and then 89. But in the middle of the summertime, we usually hover right around 85, 86, and Southern California is where Southern California, we're always complaining when it gets up to like 88 degrees. So over 88 or over 90, we're really babies. And the same with the cold. When it gets about 60 degrees here, 65, we're complaining about how cold it is. Anyway, I titled this podcast "The Fountain of Youth." So I have a something I was going to talk about. I ended up I was on the computer yesterday, Sunday, and it was my day off as far as doing any work. Actually, I almost did a surprise podcast yesterday, but I was like, no, I'm doing it today. So didn't need to do one yesterday. So I'm in my office. It's probably around 2:30, 3 o'clock p.m. And one of my old crushes, my phone rings, and I was literally on my computer doing some stuff. So I was actually talking to somebody, and then my phone rings, and I was like, oh, and I look, and it's one of my old crushes that I haven't talked to in a while. Her and I actually met on the set of The People versus O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson. She was one of my BG actors, and my background actors. And she's done background work for a long time as a background actor. And we ended up, I took her to the wrap party for the show when it wrapped, and we've just been really good friends. And I've done some professional photos of her, and they came out really well. And anyway, it was weird that she called. She doesn't like me talking about herself. She's listening. She's been watching the show, so she's listening. She's probably having a fit right now. But anyway, I got a call from her, and basically she picked up about 4 years. Yeah, my nose is itching, so she's either talking about me or thinking about me. So anyway, about 4 years ago, I think now, she picked up and basically just left LA. And her mom lives up in Washington. And as a matter of fact, if you know who Nomadic Fanatic is, they're from the same town, or her mom lives in the same town that Nomadic Fanatic is from. So I'd never even heard of the town until Nomadic Fanatic mentioned it in one of his videos. And he goes up there from time to time in Washington because that's where he's from. But anyway, she's from the same town. And it was so funny because when she told me she was going, that's where her mom lived, and she was moving there, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a guy on YouTube named Nomadic Fanatic that's from the same town. But anyway, I got a call from her yesterday, and she's basically telling me that she really wants to move back to Southern California. And she still considers this home. And she goes, I really want to come home. I'm ready to come home. And I was like, you don't want to come here. And then I started giving her all the negatives about, what's going on here, and that people are just leaving. One of my really good friends, Jamie, that's from Texas. I've known the girl known her for 10 years, probably. I met her in Long Beach when we were both working in downtown Long Beach in the bar scene. And I went over, had dinner with her in Long Beach a month ago, I guess. And she didn't say anything. And then I talked to her like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. No, a week and a half ago. Not this week, last week. At the beginning of the week, I talked to her, and we were talking about the podcast just via text. And I said, I think I'm over it. I said, I think I'm getting ready to leave to find somewhere else to go besides Southern California. And that's why I only signed a month-to-month lease on this office, because I'm over it. I'm ready to go. And she informed me, she goes, well, I'm leaving Monday. I was like, what? She goes, I'm leaving Monday. I'm moving to Illinois. And I was like, Monday? And this was like a Tuesday. So Monday was like a week away. And she goes, yeah, I'm moving to Illinois. And I was like, I was blown away because I've been talking about it. She hasn't even been talking about it, and she just did it. So I saw her Facebook story day before yesterday. She's already gone. She's already in Champaign, Illinois. She was out doing her Facebook story that she's already there. So a lot of my friends are fleeing California. And I said in a previous podcast, maybe I think the last podcast, it's kind of like the Titanic. California is going down, and it's like rats abandoning ship or people abandoning ship, and everybody's leaving. So I'm just dwelling on this negative about California. And I've said continuously, I'm over it. The high taxes, the high gas prices, the crappy roads, the insane prices we have to pay for anything. Yeah, I think a lot of people are over it. And so all I do is mostly dwell on the negative about California and all the liberal politics and the liberal policies and all that stuff that has literally pushed me from being a liberal or leaning left to way more right. That's the reason I lean right now, is because of living in California and having to deal with all of this stuff on a day-to-day basis. So when she called yesterday and said she wants to come back to Southern California, the first thing I said, well, you don't want to come here. That's exactly what I said on the phone. I was like, you do not want to come here. I said, this place is a disaster. I said, everybody's leaving. Nobody's coming here. Nobody's moving to California right now. Everybody is leaving. Everybody is abandoning ship, from A-list celebrities to YouTubers to your regular average Joe. Everybody's leaving. And she goes, no, I still think I want to come back. And I was like, huh. And then we ended up doing like a face chat and talked for a while on the phone. And it dawned on me, because I grew up in a town very much like the one she moved to. It's small townish. Everybody knows your business. It's just very white collar, or very blue collar, not white collar, very blue collar working class people. And there's nothing wrong with those type of people. My whole family's those type of people. I'm pretty much that type of people, but I've been around a lot of white collar, a lot of upper echelon people. And you find a lot of those people here in California, which is one of the things I actually love about California, is because everybody intermingles. Like when I lived in Dallas, I mean, you were in whatever clique you were in. If you were super wealthy, then you hung out like out in Plano or Highland Park, and you hung out in those wealthy areas with your wealthy friends. If you're middle class, you went to like the sports bar, you hung out, watched the football game with all your middle class buddies and drank beer and raised hell and that kind of thing. California is not like that. When I lived in downtown Long Beach, I would go out with all of my friends on a regular basis. And some of my friends, and we would all be in the same clique. We would all go to a restaurant together. And some of those friends may be babysitters, or they may work at a daycare. Some of those friends may be nannies. Some of those friends may work as a bartender. Some of those friends may be lawyers, and some of them may be pulling in $400,000 or $500,000 a year. And we all intermingle because nobody really cares about what exactly you do here as far as a living, which is very different than most states, because most states are very caught up in how much money you're making and what you're doing. Now, California, you do want to, if you make a lot of money, people know it out here, but people flaunt it, but nobody really cares. Does that make sense? But anyway, when I was talking to her, I could just see that she's had a change in her. She's not the same girl that I knew when she lived in California, if that makes sense. And nothing on a negative. It's just, you are what you're surrounded by. And she's now in a very blue collar, I don't know if it's a distressed town, but it's, like it's exactly the way I grew up with when I go back to where I grew up, when my mother passed away, she had like a plot of land that needed property taxes paid on it. I was going to pay the property taxes and keep the land. And then I thought to myself, if I have that land, eventually I'm probably going to want to put a tiny house on it, or build on it, or do something on it. You know what? The government can have it, because I don't want to ever be back there. I lived there. I grew up there. I don't want to be back there. And that's kind of the way my friend was yesterday. I could tell that she doesn't want to be there where she is, because it's just a difference. And as much negativity as I say about California, California does have that. And I've never been anywhere else that has this. I don't know. It's a little mystique. I don't know how to explain it. It's just people live a different lifestyle out here. And if you haven't lived this lifestyle, you really can't explain it. A lot of people, like, I look at the people that I went to school with. I look at the people, excuse me. I look at the people I went to school with. I look at the people that are my same age, that are, living their lives in another part of the country, mostly Texas, where a lot of them never left the small towns that I grew up in. And, I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm not trying to brag. I mean, it sounds braggadocious, but they all pretty much look, I'd say 10 years older than I do. Maybe some of them even 15 years older than I do. Um, I mean, I'm almost 51 years old. I'll be 51 in December. Uh, and I've had people ask me, like, from other, people from Texas, my friends from Texas, like, what are you doing? Like, what do you do? Like, what kind of vitamins do you take? What kind of health regimen, or like, what kind of exercise do you do? And I'm like, well, I used to exercise a lot, but like in the last several years, I got burned out on the gym. So I don't really do anything but just live my life. My diet's not very great. My diet's not great since I started van life. Um, but it's just people live with a lot younger mentality out here. And when I go different places in the United States, I mean, people ask me, are you going to go back to Texas? When I talk about leaving California. And I'm like, I have no, I mean, I love Texas, don't get me wrong, but Texas has that exact same thing as my friend's town in Washington. It has that same uh, blue collar, go to work 9 to 5, go to church on Sunday, all of those things. And those people, they just age like I say, they age like milk. You know what I mean? Californians age like wine, and most people in this country and other places in other states age like milk. Um, it's, I don't know, that's probably not very politically correct, but it's true. One reason that I feel um, as young as I do is because I live here in California. It's sunny all the time. Like right now, it's sunny outside. If I want to go outside and do something, if I want to go play basketball, if I want to go play golf, you can literally play golf in California probably 300 and what is there, 365 days in a year. You could probably play golf 363 of those days. There may be 3 days a year that the weather's so bad that you can't play golf because it doesn't rain. It's like Groundhog Day here. Every day it's sunny. So when you think about your most beautiful day, I don't know what part of the country you're in, but think about your most beautiful sunny days. When you have a really bad winter time, I know, Amy, you're in Kansas, and the wind in Kansas is like West Texas that just cuts right through you. So when you think about your most beautiful days, sunny days where the weather's just right, it's not too hot, it's not too cold. Um, I mean, like I said, lately we've had this weird heat wave that we usually don't have, but it's been like in the 90s and 100 degrees. We usually don't have that. But if you think about an 85-degree day, a 65 to 85-degree day, we usually hover in those temperatures, which I think the average is 74 or 76, something like that, is the average temperature. So we just have that weather. You just always have nice weather. And I think the nice weather out here is one reason that a lot of people stay looking younger. I have a friend of mine, or a really good friend of mine, Kimberly. Kimberly is probably, what is she, 56 or 57 now? I would show you a picture of her if I could figure it out. She's 56 or 57 now, and she looks like she's 39. She looks like she's 39 or 42, if that. People that know me know her and have talked about me and her, and I've like, oh yeah, she's older than I am. They're like, what? And I go, yeah, she's older than I am. She's like, I think she's like almost six. She's pushing 60. And they're like, no way. I'm like, yeah, way. So it's a different lifestyle out here. So that's one thing that I look at when I look at wherever I'm going to move. Like I have a friend of mine, I think about Tucson. I have a friend of mine, she lives in Tucson, and she's originally from like San Diego area. So she goes back to San Diego area from time to time, but I see her Snapchat stories or her Instagram stories, and when she's in Tucson, she's always like doing this, like her Instagram stories are always to the point or to the topic of like, oh God, I'm stuck in Tucson. Can't wait a couple more weeks. I'll be back in San Diego. So, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to move to Tucson. So, or I'm looking at Tucson. I don't want to be in that. I don't know. It's like, a lot of these places have like a boredness to them. Like they seem like there's nothing to do, like they don't have anything to do. Now, granted, in the COVID era here in Southern California, there's really nothing to do either, which is what really makes it weird because there's always something to do here. But with the COVID thing, I think a lot of us are stuck inside. Hey, Detox D, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Amy Preston says, when I was in Myrtle Beach, it was very nice and I could feel the difference in my body and health too. Yes, Amy Preston. So one of my high school girlfriends was from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And she moved to, Tucson, Arizona, Detox D. And she moved to Lubbock, Texas. And I met her in the 9th grade, and she had just moved from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to Lubbock, Texas. And if you've never been to Lubbock, Texas, Amy, you've been to Amarillo because I heard you mention it on my podcast the other day. So Amarillo is just about like Lubbock, or maybe it wasn't you, Amy, it was somebody else, but somebody mentioned Amarillo, which is where I was born, but I grew up in Lubbock, and that's how my last name is Holly. There was another famous Holly, somebody else famous with a last name Holly there in Lubbock. So anyway, so she moved from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to Lubbock, and she had that exact same thing. Like she felt like she had left paradise. So she was depressed for like a month after she started high school in Lubbock, or probably more than that, probably more like 3 months. She was super depressed because she had been living and went to junior high school and everything. Her dad was in the military, and he transferred from South Carolina, or from Myrtle Beach to Lubbock, to Reese Air Force Base there in Lubbock, which is shut down now. It's no longer even there. But she had that same dilemma of like, she felt like she had left paradise and now she was stuck in, purgatory, being in Lubbock. Because if you've never been to Lubbock, I say it's probably one of the ugliest places in the United States. Like even if you get out the Joshua Tree, which is the Mojave Desert, it's got a beauty to it. You're literally in the Mojave Desert. You are in the desert when you're in Joshua Tree. But Joshua Tree has some absolutely amazing aesthetics to the land, to the scenery. Now, don't get me wrong, there's places that's not so aesthetically pleasing, but then if you go out to Giant Rock or you go out to the Joshua Tree National Park, it's beautiful out there. Beautiful. If you go to Lubbock in West Texas, there's nothing beautiful about it. The only beautiful thing about it is I grew up there, so it's kind of like when you go back home kind of thing. Amy Preston says, I've been to Needles, Arizona. Yes, Detox D. I was talking about Tucson. When I was, the last time I came back from Texas, I spent a few days in Tucson. I have spent a couple of times that I've went through to Texas. I've stopped in Tucson for a few days, and I really like Tucson. I've got a friend of mine that lives I heard Tucson is nice, simple town, not much to do, but what can you do nowadays? Yeah. So it's kind of that little mid-sized city that I was talking about. I had a blast in Tucson. It's got like a whole like street that's, like a late night that was packed. Probably not now during the COVID days, but this was before the COVID days. So I had a really good time. I parked out in the Arts District of Tucson, and I really liked it. I have a friend of mine that lives in Phoenix, and he was like, I don't know why you would want to live in Tucson. It's like a liberal mecca as well, or something like that. But I had a really good time in Tucson. So I don't know. I'm looking maybe Flagstaff, but Flagstaff gets really cold in the wintertime. I don't know. I used to drive from Dallas to Vegas, and we'd always have to go through Flagstaff. And there was a couple of times going through Flagstaff that we were in a car. One time we were in a Lexus, and we ended up having to pull over because there was too much snow. So we had to pull over and sleep in the car because we basically got snowed in. It was like a whiteout. You couldn't see. So we ended up pulling over and going to sleep. And it's literally just that little stretch of Flagstaff. Because once we got a good 10 or 15, 20 miles out of where Flagstaff was, there was no snow. I mean, it was completely dry. And I remember I rode my Harley back from, what's up, Trav, Chevy Life. I rode my Harley back from Florida one time, And I rode all the way across the United States from Florida, from Daytona Beach, coming back to LA. And I had left Santa Fe. I spent a few days in Santa Fe, which is another little town that I love because my aunt lives there. And I was in Santa Fe, and I spent probably 4 or 5 days there. And then I was coming on back to LA. And when I left Santa Fe, it was a beautiful day, probably 80 degrees. And I cruised, and I was just cruising along, and I got to Flagstaff, and I ended up having to pull over and put my leathers on because it was so cold going through Flagstaff. And so I put all my big heavy leather jacket on, and my chaps and everything so I could stay warm. And then I cruised on. I was going to stop like 3 nights along the way. But once I hit Flagstaff, man, I was just cruising along, and I ended up riding from one morning. I ended up riding all the way from Santa Fe. I left Santa Fe like 10 in the morning, and I rolled into my place in Long Beach like at 10 p.m. that night. So I rode 12 hours straight through. When I planned on breaking that trip from Santa Fe to LA, I planned on breaking it up into 3 days and staying 3 days in 3 different hotels. But I was having such a good ride, I just came on into California. And but anyway, I stopped outside of Flagstaff and put my leathers on because I was freezing. And then I got into California, and I was coming down I-10 past through Indio and through the lower desert. And I ended up I had my leathers on. I had this freaking this scarf thing to cover my neck up so my neck didn't get cold. And I had all this cold weather gear on. And then I roll into California and get into the Mojave Desert, and it was like 111 degrees, like at 1 o'clock, or was it that late? What time was it? Probably 7 o'clock. It was dark. And so then now I'm miserable because at first when I was going through Flagstaff, I was freezing because I just had a short sleeve shirt on. I'm freezing, and I get pulled over and get on my dig all my cold weather gear out and get it on, which I hadn't used my cold weather gear from Florida all the way to Flagstaff. Was the first time I pulled my cold weather gear out, and I was riding at night. How far is Flagstaff from the Navajo Nation? The Navajo Nation is a little bit up north of Flagstaff. No, it's a little bit to the west, I believe, but it's not that, or east. It's not that far. But the Navajo Nation stretches, but it's actually not that far from Flagstaff, the Navajo Nation. But anyway, I get into California, and it's like 111 degrees, and I've got all of this heavy leather cold weather gear on, and I was really dying because it was super, super hot. Amy Preston says it snows in Williams, Arizona in the spring too. Got caught there in the snow a few times on Run for the Wall. Yeah, there are some places it snows. It does get cold, and it even gets cold in the wintertime, in all these places in Arizona. Like Phoenix even gets cold. And that's another one of those things about California. It does, when it gets we complain when it gets down to 65. And when it gets down to 65 degrees, we're wimping and whining and crying like there's people and this is, like in the middle of November and December. You look at the temperatures like in Minneapolis, and it's like 15 degrees, and it's 65 degrees here, and we're throwing a fit. We basically have to wear a hoodie. That's what we wear in the wintertime is hoodies. Just about any time. Step Van Dan says hello and big hugs from Minnesota. So Step Van Dan, he knows about winter times. Anybody in here that knows about a winter time is Step Van Dan. What's up, Dan? Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Detox D says, yep, up here in Washington State, it gets cold. Where are you at, Detox D? I was just talking about Washington State. I was talking about my friend, or one of my old crushes called me yesterday on the phone. Yakima. I've never been to Washington. So I think she's around like the Aberdeen or wherever. I don't know if it's pronounced there. It's around where Nomadic Fanatic, his hometown, is where she lives. Her mom lived there, and she left Los Angeles and moved up to where her mom was about 4 years ago. And it was very eye-opening because she called me yesterday just out of the blue, and it was very eye-opening talking to her because she 2 hours from Seattle. Okay. So you're probably I don't know, north of where she is. But it's 82 degrees here now. It's 7:36 and it's 82 degrees, but it seems really warm. But yeah, Seattle is more raining. Yeah, she said where she's at, it's raining and the weather's not great. I don't know if it's, yeah, Aberdeen, Washington. It's not Aberdeen, but it's in that area is where she lives. She lives in another town somewhere around Aberdeen, I believe. But she originally moved to Aberdeen, which is, where is that at? Is in perspective. Let's see. I know it's like 1,500 miles, I guess, from LA. Yeah, so it is right there. It's pretty close to the coast, it looks like. It's like it looks like it's probably what, 2 or 3 hours southwest of Seattle. Not too far from Olympia, it looks like. Yeah, it's directly west of Olympia. So anyway, she moved up there from California, from Southern California, and she called me out of the blue yesterday, and she is really longing to come back to California. And I was telling her, you don't want to come back here. I mean, like everybody's leaving. Everybody's abandoning ship here. You don't want to come back here. And then we're just talking to Via on the phone. And then we ended up talking, face chatting with each other. And then it's just, she's had a change in her. When she was here, she was just this, I don't know, this, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, she had this youthfulness to her um, that I can see is, but I, st- I don't know the words to use. It seems like it's been drained out of her. She seems like this happy-go-lucky girl that I always knew, that was always smiling, and even when things were rough for her, she was always positive, always smiling, and she just seems to have that like that mentality, like a lot of small town people have. Like nothing's gonna, everything's not good. So I told her, I said, maybe you should come back to Southern California. I don't think you're doing too well there. So it it made me stop and reevaluate, the whole California thing, because I think a lot of people that live here in California, we get spoiled. We get spoiled on the weather. We get spoiled on the lifestyle. And even somebody like me who's railing against the political correct police and the extreme liberalization of the nation that's stemming from here, there's still this magical thing about being a Californian, that unless you live in California and understand it, that nobody else in the country can understand that. Like a buddy of mine, or not a buddy of mine, but a guy that we're friends on Facebook. He gives me, like, he's always biting at me because he's a super liberal, and me and him go back and forth on Facebook. He's a black guy, and he's dug at me like 3 or 4 times about, oh yeah, I can see why you're single, or no wonder you're single, buddy. Bro, I am single because everybody in LA is single. That's one thing people don't understand. Well, when I grew up in Texas, I got married when I was 17. And by the time I was 21, 22, I had a 5-year-old child. I'd been married for 5 years. So that's the way I grew up. I understand that mentality. That was the small town mentality where I grew up, where you got married young, you got a job, a 9 to 5er, and then you went to work and you tried to make a life for yourself. LA is not like that. LA is a single person's playground. I mean, nobody wants to be in a relationship out here. You can't get into a relationship because LA will break your relationship. There's a very popular van life couple, or a bus schoolie couple, that was one of my favorite Nomad schoolie channels, called Roll With It. And those two built their bus up in New York. They built their bus up in New York, and then am I peaking? They built their bus up in New York, and then they traveled. Um, Let me turn this mic down a little bit. Sounds like it might be distorting. They built their bus up in New York, and then they traveled to all over the United States, and then they ended up here in Los Angeles. And as soon as they landed here, I went, oh no, because they're a couple. They're a couple, and they'd been a couple on YouTube for like 2 years, 3 years. The entire time they built their bus, they started with a bus, an empty shell of a bus, and through their YouTube channel, if you go to Roll With It, ROLLWITCA or WITH with it, Roll with IT, Roll With It. If you go to their channel, started a new channel, Kylie, I think her name's Kylie, the female. She started her own channel, and her boyfriend started his own channel, or ex-boyfriend. But when they hit LA, I went, oh no, I knew it. Because as soon as they landed here, and she's cute, and she's got just as cute a personality. As soon as they landed here, they went to Venice Beach, the worst place that they could go. They end up getting a apartment in Venice Beach. So now they're in the gym all the time, working out every morning, doing all the California, what everybody does as soon as they land here. They get into the whole California lifestyle. They just embrace it and fall right into it. And part of that California lifestyle is wanting to sleep with other people, or, it's a smorgasbord out here. So nobody wants to be in a relationship because there's always somebody, you're always going to meet somebody else. And, I have a joke that's why, that's why nobody wants to be in a relationship out here, because if you're in a relationship, if you decide to go get into a committed relationship today, you may go to a party tomorrow night and meet somebody else you want to be in a relationship with. And that's why relationships don't last in this town. I don't know anybody that stayed in, I really don't know too many people that stayed in California that their relationship has lasted that long, that has stayed in California. Because it's a singles playground. Everybody's single here. But like in Dallas, where I'm from, it's right the opposite. People want to get married. People want to have kids and buy a house and keep up with the Joneses. That's exactly the way it was when I lived in Dallas. I lived that exact same mentality. And then I moved out here, and it was so different out here because people just don't stay together out here. People date for a couple of years and then they're done. You'll know people that you'll go to a party, they're in a committed relationship, they seem super super happy. You leave that party, you don't see them again, and then you'll run into them 2 months later at another party, and they're with somebody else completely different that they're just as happy with. So that is LA in a nutshell. But I think that's one reason that people in LA seem to stay younger. That mentality and that lifestyle creates a youthful atmosphere, even though it may not be morally what a lot of the country thinks is moral. It is the truth. Detox D says, let's go. Detox D says, where I am from, it's kind of like a desert, but the river passes through it, so there's a lot of crops. That's kind of the way Northern California is, up around Fresno. A lot of farmland and stuff up there. Amy Preston says she has had too much of adulting. No escape in towns like that. Exactly, Amy. And when she was living here in Southern California, the other thing is, because the things are so expensive, it is a struggle. It is a struggle here. You have to, what's the word I'm looking for? If you don't like adversity, living in Southern California is not going to be for you. Only the strong survive in this town. And it's because you have to be able to roll with it, like the freaking YouTube channel. You have to be able to roll with it out here, because things, just like my RV getting towed a couple of weeks ago, and it's $1,500 to get it out. If it had gotten towed in Dallas, where I lived before, it would have been $300 to get it out, and I would have bitched and cried about that. But out here, it's $1,500. It's completely different. And there was no getting it out without paying. It was over $1,500, and there was no getting it out without paying it. You either pay it or you lose it. So that's the kind of adversity that you run into out here. You don't leave the house out here without money in your account, because you could get a parking ticket. You could have to pay tolls. You don't run around in Los Angeles with no money in your pocket. When I was a kid, when we first moved to Dallas, there were times when we just didn't have any money after we paid rent and everything. We just didn't have any money. And out here, you could get yourself in trouble. You got to pay to park everywhere you go, but you got to pay to park. You got to leave the house with like $50 in your pocket, at least with $50 that you can spend. And so that kind of stuff builds up as adversity, and you end up getting beat down by that stuff, and thinking, gosh, it's so much simpler in these other places. But then people move back to these other places and they don't seem to thrive that much, um, depending on the places. Because Kylie J from Roll With It, she moved up to Montana and she seems like she's doing great. It's exactly what she needed, was a getaway. So when her and Scott from Roll With It, when Scott and her broke up, Kylie J moved up to Montana. She ran off to Montana. She just released a new video on her channel, Roll With It Kylie J. I think it's her new YouTube channel. And she seems to be thriving up there, but it's very, Montana's a different animal. It's nature. She can go fish, go sit in the river, go do whatever she wants. KBJ or JBK says, I think Kaylee, yeah, she started a new channel. It's called Roll With Kaylee J, I believe. And Scott has his own channel now that's called Roll With Scott, I believe. Or does he have the original channel? I can't remember. It's one of those things that you see a lot in the van life community. They basically made it on YouTube, and when they got to a point where they had a ton of subscribers, then they called it quits and all went a different direction. Detox D says, oh man, I saw that post you shared of beach in California where there's a lot of homeless people there. Yeah, that's Venice Beach. So Venice Beach, that's the boardwalk. That's the famous Venice Beach boardwalk that used to be in every movie. When you would see all the tourists, it would be so cram packed with people walking. There'd be girls roller skating, and there'd be dudes skateboarding, and hot girls in bikinis riding on bicycles like beach cruisers down the street looking thing. That's it. That's the Venice Beach boardwalk. That is the famous Venice Beach boardwalk. It has now been taken over by homeless people. It's insane. Detox D said, I saw RVs there. You saw RVs where? Detox D. There's a bunch of RVs in Venice Beach. It's one of the, it's always been kind of it was the mecca of the van life community here in Southern California. The Woods Online says California is going to get y'all with their proposed exit tax. Yeah. They'll always figure out some kind of tax. They literally want to tax us to breathe here. Going to cost you for years. Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Worst comes to worst, I'll buy a sailboat and sail directly down to Mexico. It's 99 miles to the Mexican border. What are they going to do? So a big part of the controversy out here right now in California is one of the TikTok kids' houses. The mayor actually had the city turn off their water and electricity because they were partying. They were ignoring the COVID restrictions. And these famous TikTok kids, they're like 19 years old, and they're living in these multi-million-dollar houses that they've leased. And this one house, it's called God, I can't think of the name of it, the Smooth House or something like that. And they were continuously, it's owned by or rented by a famous TikTok kid. He's like 18 or 19 years old. And he was continuing to have these big parties. And the mayor threatened to turn their utilities off. And not did they only threaten it, they actually did it. And Joe Rogan just had a big rant on his latest podcast a couple of days ago, where he was pretty miffed about that. because that's a pretty slippery slope when they start turning your utilities off. And then I shot a tweet out to Philip DeFranco, who I flamed a couple of podcasts ago because he was all up in arms and throwing a fit about these TikTok kids throwing these parties when there's a picture of Mayor Garcetti, the guy that turned the guy that gave the go ahead to turn their electricity and water off. Mayor Garcetti was the same mayor that was out in the middle of the protest in LA when it was illegal. It was mandatory to be wearing a mask in LA. And there's lots of pictures of him right out immersed in the middle of the BML protest, in the protest with a microphone, just no mask, around a bunch of other people with no mask. And that's 2 months ago. Detox D said, did you sell Bertha? Yeah, I'm waiting on some paperwork, Detox D, but I do have a buyer for Bertha. So if the paperwork could hurry up and come in, Bertha is sold. I've been driving it around just for old time's sake because it's been parked for 2 years, but I've been driving it like the last week, just in case it's gone here. Should be gone in a week or so as soon as the paperwork comes in, but it's California, so who knows when it's going to come in. All right, guys, we're at 51 minutes. I'm going to run this thing an hour. I appreciate you guys joining me today. I was hoping to see Matilda in here. I didn't see her in here. I actually, Matilda, I actually got her mask sent out today. I gave it away to her on the giveaway probably 2 weeks ago, and I finally got it sent out today. So that's kind of the way I get things done. But with my office here, I didn't have the stuff to print it. And then I got my printer set up and the printer wouldn't work on the Wi-Fi here. And it was just one thing after another. But I finally got the printer working. I was able to print the postage today and actually walked out and handed her mask to the letter carrier. And she put it on her truck. So hopefully it gets to you, Matilda, even though you're not here. Detox T says, are you going to sell the Snap-on truck? Yes, possibly. There's a bus that I want out in Florida that I really would like to have, but I don't know. That guy is being kind of shady, or not shady. He's just being iffy about the bus. He keeps telling me when you find another rig, I'm going to do. Basically, what it boils down to is the bus that I wanted in Florida. I basically told the guy that owns it, because he's got a big tour bus, like a really big, like like what all the bands, like the rock bands or the, like any famous band tour bus. He owns one of those, like a $500,000 or $300,000 tour bus. And then he's got this little bus that I like that it was a blood bank bus. So it was a school bus, a Bluebird, that was built to be like a medical bus to go around places and like where people could come into the bus and give blood, I guess. So it was never a school bus. But he's ended up moving out of his $500,000 bus, and he's living in the bus that I like. Well, he had the bus listed on Facebook Market, and I talked to him maybe a year or two ago, and he was talking about bringing his big tour bus out to California before he had this blue bus he calls Big Blue. But now he keeps saying things like, well, when you find a different rig or something like that, I don't know what the deal is. The problem is I told him what my plans were for the bus, and now I think he's thinking of it for himself. And so I don't know if I'm going to get that bus or not. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just move on and do something else. I mean, I've been promoting his stuff on my show here and everything else, and then all of a sudden I start getting these continuous texts about, well, when you get a different bus, this is what I'm going to do with Blue. Or so don't ever tell people what you plan to do with stuff if you're going to buy it from, or if you're thinking about buying it from, because they'll just do it themselves. Detox T goes, how good was Bertha on gas? Is that a joke? It's got a 440 engine in it. It wasn't good on gas. Get about 10 miles per gallon. It's one reason I got the Snap-on truck. The Snap-on truck is bigger and it gets 12 miles per gallon because it's a Cummins diesel. Any gas RV, doesn't matter what size the RV is, any gas RV, you're going to get about 10 miles per gallon if you're lucky. I talked to a girl today. Called me, went to talk to her for like 2 hours about solar. And she just got an RV that's like an 89 or 88. It only has like 26,000 miles on it. but it's got a 454 in it. It's a little A class. It's 27 foot long. But I told her, I said, you're going to get maybe 6-7 miles per gallon in that thing with a 454 in it. That thing's a big, it's a big wall. It's a big, you're pushing a wall through the wind with a 454. That's why I like a diesel, because I don't know if his is a Prevost or not. Woods Online. I don't know. It may be a Prevost or whatever it is. But it's one of those. It's like a Provost. It's a big tour bus like that. But he's got this other medical bus, like I said, that was used for like a blood bank. So it's all built better than, it's built for a medical facility. So it's built very well. It's got a toilet in it. It's got running water in it. It's got the water tanks. It's got a fresh water tank. It's got a gray water tank. All that stuff is built into it already. So it'd be very easy to convert it into a living bus. And he's actually living in it now. He's not living in his nice bus. He's living in it. So I think that's why he's having second thoughts about selling it. Detox D says, I feel like getting a van instead. Yeah, you're going to get better mileage in a van for sure. I talked to a guy yesterday that came to help me move the guy that I paid to help me move the office furniture out of the office. He came by. I contacted him on, I think, Facebook Market or whatever, but he came by in a Suzuki box truck, but it was one that had the underskirting, so it didn't have that. It looked like it went almost all the way to the ground. And come to find out, he had a 4-cylinder in that thing, and it was just a 1 ton, I guess. And he said he got pretty close to 20 miles per gallon if he wasn't in the wind, and driving around here. The Woods Online says 8 miles per gallon on our 2013 Class C 32 foot long V10 E450. Exactly. Yep. 8 miles, 10 miles. If you can, Bertha got 10 miles with that 440. She would get about 10 miles out on the highway, about 8 miles per gallon running around town. But if you got out on the highway and you just did 55 miles an hour, you could get 10 to 11 miles per gallon. But that's what I like about the Snap-on truck. That thing is huge. It can hold 22,000 pounds and it gets 12 miles per gallon, but it's a diesel. Detox D says, I feel like Captain Jack Sparrow when I drive the RV though. Yeah, and the Woods Online, that's a 2013 model. So even the newer ones. And then the funny thing is when you get into the big diesel pushers, like the big Provost, they don't get that good of fuel mileage either, and they're diesels. But it's because they're so heavy. You're still getting about 10 miles per gallon. All right, guys, we're at 58 minutes here, so we're going to go a couple more minutes. There's 9 people in the room. We got 4 thumbs up, so if you guys can remember to hit that thumbs up, I would definitely appreciate it. I'm looking at having some new guests on in the future. Hopefully, I'm going to get the Zoom program working so I can have some guests call into the show and try to get some guests going before I can get other guests here in the studio. Everybody's still a little, it's still a little iffy, people coming in and actually doing the show in person since we're still in the COVID era, which I think will all be over in November. Things will be back to normal especially if Biden wins. I think the whole dichotomy is going to change to where, oh yeah, we're working everything, it's all positive, it's all good, things great now. We'll just COVID's not that big a deal. One thing I did see, I saw 3 or 4 days ago, I was driving down Orange Thrope here and Fullerton in Orange County, and I drove by a park and they were having a girls' soccer game. I couldn't believe it. I like to fell out. They were literally having a girls' soccer game. They had the cones out there and the girls running around. I was like, it felt weird because it's something normal to see that I haven't seen in a while. Gonna be a crazy year. Yep. This year's almost over. So I think 2021 will be, hopefully 2021 will be the year to get back to some normalcy. I don't know if we'll ever get back to normal. They keep calling this the new normal. I think a lot of businesses, if we don't get opened up by December, if we're still in this kind of same kind of, if it's still the same atmosphere right now by December, I think a lot of these businesses that are still holding on by the skin of their teeth, they'll be gone. There's going to be a lot of mainstream businesses, like J.C. Penney's, Marshalls, uh, a lot of restaurants, even restaurant chains. I think that are going to go, like Chili's or stuff like that. I think are going to go out of business for good. I think it'll be a lot of empty buildings, we'll see a lot of vacant buildings of stuff like Chili's or in Texas, Bennigan's, Chili's, Applebee's. I think you're going to see whole conglomerates of businesses going out of business. And you'll see their old buildings around and going, oh, I remember that was, remember when that was a Chili's or even Denny's. You could see something like Denny's go out of business. Detox D says they call our government Hitler and they call our government Hitler and king a bunch of names because he doesn't want to open up the state. Yeah. Well, and are you talking about Washington Detox D? Because California is not opening up either. California is the poster child of not opening up. That's what's another reason so many people are leaving. Joe Rogan's leaving. A lot of the comedians are leaving. A lot of people are leaving just because you can't make a living here. You can't make a living here if you have to work, in the entertainment industry. Like they're not even making movies or stuff here. There's, I guess, a couple of little productions that's opened up, but I've looked at the new restrictions that you have to go through, and I don't even want to work on a movie or a TV show with all the new restrictions. Detox D says, come to Washington. I'm going to drive up there, even if I have to just jump on a plane and fly up to like Olympia or Seattle. I might just jump on a plane one day and fly to Seattle and then go walk around downtown Seattle, take a taxi, go walk around downtown Seattle or a Uber or a Lyft, go walk around downtown Seattle, go back, get on the plane, fly back to California, and then I can mark Washington off my bucket list. Then I can say I've been there. So that'll only leave Oregon, Hawaii, and Alaska. And then I'll do the same thing one of these days with Alaska. But hopefully I'll get a sailboat one day and be able to either take an RV or my rig, my Nomad rig, whatever it is, whether it's a sailboat or a bus or whatever, and take it up to Alaska for a season. I want to go up there and check it out for a season. I know a couple of people that's went up there at certain times and worked for a season and came back down to the lower 48 with a really nice chunk of change in their bank account. A big enough chunk of change that they could go up to Alaska and work a season, which I don't know. I think maybe a year. I mean, not a year. It's what is it? Maybe 4 months, 3 months is what they consider a season in Alaska. Maybe 3 months, 90 days. And they work that 90 days and then you don't have to work. You've made enough money. You don't have to work for the rest of the year. So yeah, something like that I would definitely not pass on something like that. But evidently you pretty much got to be up there in Alaska before you can find a gig like that, unless somebody hooks you up that's done it before. I think Chris Penn with the Off-Grid Schoolie, I think he figured something out, him and his girlfriend at the time, G, when they were going up there every year to Alaska. I think they figured something out like that. Come on a bike tour. I'm still hauling my Harley Davidson around in the back of my Snap-on truck. And because the drunk driver ran into the back of the Snap-on truck, I can't get the Harley out of it because the lift gate doesn't work now. So now my whole living quarters is taken up by my big Harley Davidson that's sitting in the floor that I can't even get around. I can't even get into my sock drawer. I would show you oh, wait a minute. They're over there. I actually went like a couple of days ago and bought new socks because I can't get into my sock drawer. So I just had to go buy new socks. Anyway, guys, we are at 104. Don't forget the new time. The live stream podcast now will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. And I'm going to be producing some other videos that'll be going on this channel and the Nomad News channel in the future. Before I wrap this up, I want to touch base on one thing because I had somebody, had some couple of people that I had some discourse with about the podcast and where it's going. The Woods Online, if you're still in here, Brian from the Woods Online, he's asked several times about what is the direction of the podcast. And kind of the reason I abandoned the Nomad News podcast or the Nomad News channel is I had this grand delusion that I was going to have this cool van life podcast over here. And my old boss, Serena, she was gonna co-host it with me. She had agreed to co-host it with me. And so I kind of put Serena out there in the community tab, and we did a couple of photo shoots together, and I was just kind of was putting her out there so people would get used to her and it would break it in. And then we got all of this immensible hate, like people just saying the most outlandish things about Serena, and that I didn't need some floozy, that I was taken advantage of, some young girl, some young floozy I was taken advantage of, some pretty face to make the channel is what was one of the comments or something like that. And let's hit the brakes because Serena was my boss and she agreed to do it. But she was actually my boss. She owned the company that I work for. So it wasn't really like I was taking advantage of some young girl that was just so naive. She didn't realize that I was using her for her pretty face for the podcast. So anyway, I put the brakes on that and completely backed out of it because I saw Serena didn't need that kind of negativity. And so it was really embedded with that van life community that was emailing me and saying snooty and really uh, derogatory comments and derogatory things. And it really soured me. When I went to RTR, I really didn't have a good time at RTR because, that's one thing about me is I get passionate about things, but I can get unpassionate just like that. That's why about making this like a political podcast, which I've thought about that because I talk about politics a lot on my Facebook. Come November, though, it depends on what happens with the election. I may not be near this passionate about politics come this time, in February. So I don't know. It's kind of in limbo right now, exactly what genre I'm going to go with. I will say I know most of you that are in here followed me originally because of the van life, my van life talking about van life. But the hate that the really quick hate on the Nomad News channel really just put a bad taste in my mouth to where I don't really like communicating or talking with anybody else now in the van life community. I'm not really looking. I love you guys because you guys have been with me pretty much from the beginning, but I'm not looking to. I hope all of those other people, I hope I turned them off and they left. That was saying those comments because that's basically what I told them. Like, you can get lost. I don't care if you watch this channel or not. And I basically just abandoned that channel. I stopped doing the Nomad News and I haven't done a Nomad News segment over there for months because if it's not fun for me, I'm not going to do it. There's not enough money in this for me to do it if it's not fun for me. I do this, it's a hell of a lot of work, but I do it when I'm excited about it and I can feel accomplished when I'm doing it. But when you're doing it for people that just have no, they just want to hate on it, it's not worth it. The Woods Online, they have a YouTube channel. You can check that out. They have a YouTube channel, but you will see a lot of the YouTubers that are a lot of the van life YouTubers, they go MIA and they go absent. And a lot of it is because of the negativity that is brought up simply in the van life community. And that's why I watch sailboats. I don't even watch van lifers anymore. There's no van lifers that I watch. And I used to watch Nomadic Fanatic, Roll With It, Wonderbus, just all there used to be Dave 2D, Paul Barger, the bread trucker. There was all of these van lifers. There was a good 10 or 11, 12 van life channels that, Chrome, I watched Chrome up in Canada. You know, I just let's see, Chrome in Canada. I always watched what is Chrome's Van Life, Van City Van Life. I watched Chrome. And I actually watched the news channels, the other Nomad news channels. I watched. You know, I was immersed in the van life community. I cut it off after that whole deal. I don't watch any van lifers. None, not one. I watch sailboats, and I watch the sailboats. I look at the comments, and they're thriving because they don't have these same people that are in the van life community. They don't have them in sailboats, and I guess it's because these type of people can't afford sailboats. So you don't have them in the comments. These derogatory people that just want to hate on everything and talk smack about what you're doing and you know, just drag you down. So yeah, so I understand if it's going to be disappointing for you if I'm not geared towards van life, because that's how you found me. And it's always a bummer when a channel changes direction. Like I've had van life channels that I've loved that they just sold the rig. Like God, what says up in Canada, Just Incredible. So Just Incredible, I started watching his channel because he had a 99 Dodge Explorer B-class camper van that was my original dream rig. And that's why I watched his channel, was because of his van. And then when he got rid of the Explorer and got that purple, that other van that he ended up making the Purple Beast or whatever it was, I called it Purple Haze. When he got that van, and I didn't watch his channel anymore because he didn't have the van. It was more about the van for me and his rig. Yeah, Just Incredible. It was more about his rig. Now, I like Justin. I think he does, you know, pretty entertainment commentary and stuff, but I liked his rig. And the same with Nomadic Fanatic. When he changed rigs a bunch of times, when he had Tilly and he had all the adversity of having this old RV, when he got into that one newer RV after he had the transmission debacle with the Tilly 2.0, I just gradually stopped watching his channel that much as he got in. Now he's in a big A class and I don't watch his channel at all. And then you have guys like Chris Penn. I watched his channel a lot, and with Zeppelin, and then he got into, was Chris Travels at the time. And then he got a girlfriend and they moved into an A class, and then I watched them. Detox D says, love your channel. Big fan. Hey, Detox D, I really appreciate that, buddy. I really do appreciate that. That's the sad part about it, is because there are so many good people in the van life community, but then you have this other dynamic of people that are in the van life community, and you see them if you go to RTR. You see them out in the community. They're in the community. It's not that they're, you know, it's not that it's trolls that, you know, that's another thing. If it was just like trolls that didn't do van life, that would be different, because you're going to get them on you're going to get them on any YouTube channel. You're going to get your trolls that are talking smack and, you know, saying different things. But when it's actually the people that are actually in your community and they're talking smack and just painting everything you're trying to do with negativity, it's just a different, it turns me off to talking about van life. I got the same thing with photography. When I started this channel in 2006, I started as a photography channel, and photographers have the biggest egos, the biggest heads. Every photographer thinks they're the perfect photographer. Every photographer thinks they're the best photographer in the world. And if you're talking about a piece of equipment technically and you say one thing wrong, they're going to just burn you and flame you for it. And so that's why I stopped doing photography. If you go back through here, I had photography videos. I had a very good following doing like a photography equipment, or like I would do it, you know, like this microphone. I would do like a review of the microphone or the stuff that I used. And I quit doing it just for the simple fact is you have photographers as well. They're a bunch of haters. You're not going to get, you know, if you have 100 photographers that are following you, you have about 10 of them that are actually fans of your work. The other 90 of them are haters of you that despise you because you're doing better than they are as a photographer, and they can't figure out why you're doing better than they are because they think they're a better photographer than you are. So it's the exact same dynamic. And then I saw the exact same thing in van life. And so now my channels are just kind of limbo when it comes to like what exactly I'm going to do here. But 2020, I'm making a run at trying to do something here. Anyway, guys, I've rambled on about 15 minutes here about what I'm going to do with this channel. So I'm going to get off here is what I'm going to do right now. Detox D said some of your predictions are so accurate. Sometimes I usually have a pretty good sense of things, but sometimes, and I'm a very good judge of character, but sometimes I just, I completely miss the point. Hacking Hollywood. What's up, buddy? Because I'll update you when I get home on the paperwork for Bertha. Oh, is it in? Or you don't know? You are still in Oklahoma, correct, Noah? I'm trying to before I started the podcast today, Noah, I was on YouTube and I'm looking at learning how to do Zoom. I want to do Zoom and have guests on via Zoom because I guess Zoom's the new craze instead of Skype. I want to do Zoom, but what I can't figure out with Zoom is I don't know if you can do it live or do you have to pre-record it. And then I want to do a live stream. I want to have a live stream. And if I want to have Brian from the Woods Online on, if I want to have him on during a episode, I just want to have it going live right now. I'm not sure if you can do that with Zoom. Random Nomad, just as I'm getting ready to shut this down, everybody's showing up. We got 11 people in the room now. Joe Eldorado, dude, good to see you, brother. Are you still in Austin or San Antonio? That's another Californian that moved to Texas, but he moved to Texas because he's very anti-liberal. But your sister, what is your sister now? What is Rose, Joe? Is she? I don't know where she I don't know where she lines up. I think we were all big liberals at one time, and now we kind of lean conservative. Random Nomad, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. We were just getting ready to shut this down, guys. So the new time is 7 p.m. So I'm going to try to go 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Trying to do 1 hour. It always stretches over. I had this thing cut off at 1 hour, and then I started rambling about what I was going to do. Yes, I am North Austin. The problem with Austin, Joe, is it's turning into a satellite. It's like a satellite California town. Austin's so much like California, it's ridiculous. Last time I was in Austin, I saw more Oakland Raiders stickers than I did University of Texas stickers on people's cars. JBK, there should be a live on YouTube option in Zoom. Okay, I appreciate that, JBK. I'm not privy to Zoom. I got to figure it out. So that's going to be this next, before the next podcast, I'm going to be studying Zoom to figure that one out. So easy coast time, 7 p.m. No, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So East Coast time, it'll be 10 p.m. for you guys. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Random Nomad, peace out, brother. Thank you, JBK. Matilda didn't show up. Matilda, if you rewatch this broadcast, your mask went out today, sweetheart. You should have it in a day or two. I got it sent out via United States Postal Service today. The Woods Online, thanks for joining us. Detox D, Amy Preston. Who else did we have? Step Van Dan from Minnesota. And thank you guys for joining me for another episode of American Nomad. And that's going to do it for this episode. And we will see you guys Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And until then, keep looking up because that's where it all is. Peace, guys.